This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org. Welcome to another edition of Maui Causes. Hi, I'm Sam Small. Eternal thanks to Kaku for giving us the facility to be able to bring you messages and ideas that you're not likely to hear in some of the other more traditional media here in Maui County, because that media generally supports the status quo. There is a business environment that is dominant here in Hawaii. It's by virtue of the takeover of the Hawaiian nation over 125 years ago. All of that power was consolidated into business interests. And today, those business interests have turned into multinational corporations. So the people making the decisions that affect you and your children are not local. They have no local interest. Their interests are only in money. And because the system is dominated by those business interests, the entire system is rigged to suck as much money out of the system as possible. I kept waiting for the citizens to rise up because essential services really did completely vanish because all the money was gone because of corruption. That corruption sucked all of the money out of Maui County. But what I realized in this last budget session is that there's plenty of money. There's so much money that they suck out everything that they can, and there's still money to actually operate the county. And that's why nothing changes. That's why this system has persisted for so long. People don't realize how much money is actually lost to corruption because we still operate as a county. If the county actually went bankrupt, then that would bring change. But bankruptcy is not going to happen in Maui County. They're not going to kill the golden goose. You have to participate like never before to change the system, because it's not going to change unless you make the difference. That's what's going to change it. As citizens, it doesn't matter what stratus of society you're in, what bubble. We all, lots of people here in Maui County, everybody sort of lives in their own little bubble, and they don't necessarily interact with one another. But if you're living here and you're not directly making your living off of the land development business and some of the other businesses that are so heavily institutionalized here and so heavily controlled by the business interests, if you are a regular person, you have to understand, no matter where you grew up, and if you're living here now, you're living in an oppressed society. And you're living in a culture that's in reaction. It's like they have PSTD. They've got post-traumatic stress because it's generations of oppression. So the local host culture is emerging out of this pit of oppression with all the problems. And they've been marginalized. And they know best how this place works. So, we have an opportunity, even, with candidates running for ʻOha, you get to vote. You actually do get to vote. And, to some, it may seem like an odd thing that a haole, somebody who a European doesn't really know about Hawaiian affairs, gets to vote for Hawaiian affairs. But you do get to do that, and it's important that you do, and you pay attention to who's running for those seats. Because just as our corrupt system, runs across all of businesses and resources, it also runs into ʻOha. ʻOha really does not have a good track record. It's really not what people think it is. It's been dominated and it's been exploited the same way. And so it needs new blood with an understanding that it really does need to align itself with the Hawaiian culture. The Ahamoku system is a perfect opportunity to bring that to fruition. because it's being empowered to bring back the voice, the understanding, the knowledge, the ancient knowledge that the Hawaiians have of this place, of the names of all of these different places, because they're all named because they have an intimate connection with each one of those places. Their culture honors the identity of each one of those places, and they know its characteristics. So if a developer is looking to put a development on a particular piece of land, who do you go to find out, that land actually is not a good place to build. I'm sorry, maybe you bought that, but it's not a good place to put in, the kind of construction that you want to do. There are people who know that and can help balance out the system. Business interests have skewed our system so far towards their special interest. The Hawaiian perspective can bring that back and be an appropriate, knowledgeable braking mechanism to the rampant development that we have. And you as citizens can choose candidates who understand that and will drive that process so that we can modify and bring the whole system has to change. So we bring our Maui culture, our Maui community, our Maui government into the modern world as a modern metropolis with appropriate checks and balances, appropriate transparency and balance, using, what a wonderful resource, using the Hawaiian knowledge as a braking mechanism for development. You can't stop development, wouldn't be right. We need it. But it does need to be consistent with the physical needs of these islands, the carrying capacity, working back from a fully built out system. Maui could be built out 100%. It could look just like Oahu. Our reefs could all be dead. I don't know why the tourist industry, doesn't understand that on our present course, they will be killing their golden goose. We will be killing the environment here, and we will be killing all the reasons that tourists come here. Look at the traffic on the Pali. What tourist wants to come here and sit in traffic on the Pali? That's not why they came here for vacation. What tourist wants to go and get a staph infection because they went into the beach that's just downstream of an injection well that's pumping human waste into the ocean? How long can these exploitative practices go on and it not consume itself? Maui will consume itself. The estimate now is that Maui is built out 12%. So what would 36% build out look like? What would 75% build out look like? And what would 100% build out look like? These things need to be looked at, and you need to support candidates who have an understanding of the realistic limitations, the appropriate level of development, to find that thread the needle so that everybody gets served. But right now, only the business interests are being served. That's what's institutionalized here. And this show is dedicated to being a positive disruption to that system, because our system needs to change. And with that system change, we can invigorate and bring new life and new ideas into Maui County, and we can mature into a modern metropolis. So we bring to you candidates that are running for office that speak to a lot of these issues. And with me today is one of my favorite people on Maui, Trinette Furtado. Thank you so much. Your wing is injured.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's an honor, really. One day I envision saying, vote for Trinette Furtado for governor. Because that is, truly, that I see that as your potential. It's where you belong.
That's some big kuleana right there.
Well, I think you are the person to do that. And starting, this is not your first race. You placed very well 2 years ago, running for county council. Yes. And in those 2 years, you've been working as an executive assistant in the council. So you have direct experience. You're already doing the work.
I'm already doing the work. And I have been for the last 2 years. And I've been fortunate enough that Councilmember Atai gave me the opportunity. I think it's vital that any new member have an opportunity to, get, just a little bit of orientation into what it takes. I mean, now having been there almost, coming up on the end of this first term, there's a lot of things that need changing. There's a lot of things that are disappointing and discouraging, but there's also a lot of things that are very promising and hopeful. And being able to see how to make those subtle changes to get things moving is the most exciting thing. I think that that I'm lucky that I didn't make it the last time. I mean, it seems strange to say that now, but I'm, as I said, I've learned so much.
Oh, yeah.
And have made so many connections. I know how to research things for, just the moving of legislation.
Sure.
And
your overall understanding of the process.
Yes.
And what can be done for the experience that you've had over the past 2 years. It's priceless because you can hit the ground running.
Yes.
That learning curve, it's a massive job.
It is.
Being a council member is a massive job. It gets really easy if someone is telling you how to vote.
Yes.
And I witnessed that because, in making testimony and having conversations with particular council members, I get to, gauge and judge, their understanding of these issues. And when I can see that they have no understanding of the issue, but yet are there voting, then it's a real indication to me that someone has told them how to vote.
Well, and it's a disservice not just for the council member because, they do have a kuleana to the people who voted them in.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a kuleana to our entire community, not just their district. But I say it's a disservice to them because, like you said, they're making the vote. And so people are either, and I don't want to say it's so extreme as they're going to live or die by the vote, but, massive changes happen, by one person
mm-hmm.
voting yes or no against or for a certain thing. And, the training I've had is almost 2 years worth, but when you first get into the council, you get maybe the first week.
Yeah.
Orientation for council members regarding sunshine law, right? Maybe
Which
a
is
half
really
hour to an hour.
complicated.
It's absolutely complicated. How to run your meetings, very basic, simple things, I think, it need not take up the entirety of their first, 2 weeks in office, but I think that it's very important to focus a little bit more on that so that if we do have members that are a little unsure as to how to chair their meeting, how to move items along, that they have the resources there, that they're able to, connect with someone or, even a primer on something, that will help them.
Couldn't we establish a program that runs after November and when the vote is validated, that person becomes a pre-council member and
like
enters,
intern or shadows
into they start doing ride-alongs with other council members. I know Alika and some of the other council members have invited other candidates to come into the office and spend the day. Learn, to sit in my chair for a couple minutes and see what it's like. Because it's a lot of work.
And it's easy to, to say, oh, I can do that, and watching them on TV, and watching, they didn't say this, or it's easy to armchair quarterback that. But really being down there and having the people in the gallery, come and they're saying, here's our concerns, and truly, kind of taking that into your final vote, your final decision. It's a huge thing because no matter what, when you walk out of those chambers, unless you're doing this, you have eyes on you. You have all that mana directed towards you, hoping you'll do the right thing. Or maybe in some cases hoping you'll do the wrong thing. But, it's not just the kuleana of passing legislation. It really is the kuleana of caring for others. Yeah, we're just caring for others in a different way. You know, I may not see you every single day, but I know that the things that I'm working on, you know, are going to affect you in some way. And so when I do see you, you know, I want it to be something where, you know, when we check in with each other, I know that I'm still doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. You know, because that's very important. If not, you know, am I making this a career? Or is this really an opportunity to help, you know, not just myself and my own family, but to help my community?
Well, and it's not only the public that the council members have to deal with. What I see is that corporation counsel is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, because it's not clear that corporation counsel is functioning in the best interests of the community. Very often, corporation counsel answers to the mayor.
Yes.
And you know, depending on who the mayor is, the entire direction of the administration can be skewed. Now, historically, what I've seen is that, you know, we have our current administration is basically, you know, facilitating they'll build out Maui 100%. You know, if Alan Arakawa comes on to the council, he's running for council, and if he gets on the council and takes over as chair, man, every opportunity for business to develop, you know, land and take advantage of our system is going to be exploited, because that's the track record. It may not be how he as a politician started out, but politics changes people. You know, it's one of the reasons term limits are really important, because if you're in there long enough, they will get to you.
Yeah. Well, you know, with that sentiment that, you know, if he gets on council, that it would result in, you know, more development and stuff, that's only if we don't get a majority of people who are Āina-minded, you know, people who are community-minded. Because if we have a majority of people that, you know, share the same values, that share the same drive, that have the same kind of passion and energy, it doesn't matter, you know, who is in the minority. You know, I mean, they can represent whomever they want. It may be difficult now, and it would depend on a mayor that was, you know, I mean, a majority of council and a friendly mayor
can really change
the county.
But it's a big if. That is a big if that we, you know, can you know, this.
I believe in the if. I believe in the people to make that if happen. Mm-hmm. You know, I see, and it's super encouraging because I've watched some videos on Facebook, right, of Hawaiian nationals voting.
Right.
It's a huge thing. I mean, people that I absolutely love and that I absolutely respect and I honor and I treasure, and who, you know, we've had discussions before, I'm not going to vote, you know, I don't vote, have voted in this election.
For the first time.
Because it is so critical.
Yeah.
I mean, and I say, you know, not just the primary, because, you know, there's a lot of people running and we want to kind of slim it down for the general, but it is so critical this election season. Right. It is so very important, especially since we have people that are pushing a constitution, you know, a con-con. I am wary of that myself, because I see the opportunity for big business interests to infiltrate that, development interests to infiltrate that, and absolutely do away with public trust resources and the protection of them, absolutely do away with Hawaiian rights, cultural protections, cultural rights.
Well, even on a national level, I never imagined that the pendulum could swing so far in the direction that it has. Yes. Never imagined that. And a constitutional convention on the federal level could also, at this time, be a very dangerous thing. Yes. Same thing in Hawaii. A constitutional convention opens the door for all kinds of change. It all has to be ratified by the community and whatever the process is. But ideas that could shift it to a even more business-centric interest
depend on whoever is representing you.
Yeah, could happen.
Know, and I think that you know,
is that a risk? Is it worth taking? Should we have a constitutional convention? That's on. I
know. I've seen it, and I've talked to a lot of people about it. And you know, as I've said, I'm wary of that for me, it really depends on who's at the table
Yeah.
when we talk about constitutional convention.
Right.
You know, which people.
But you don't necessarily get to control that beforehand.
True.
Those.
But most of the state legislators or those that are showing interest for whatever reason will be present. And it's the issue of who's backing them.
Right.
What is the agenda? What is their schedule for rollout?
Well, I don't know what the structure of the Hawaii Constitutional Convention would be, but I know on the federal level, if you are a politician or a lobbyist, you cannot be a delegate.
That would be wonderful to have.
Delegates are real people. They're not politicians. They're not in the business of government. They are actually just citizens. So I don't know, that could be, I don't know how it is here in Hawaii. I have to kind of look into that. And if anybody knows, feel free to reach out to us. Reach out to us on MauiCauses.org. All of our shows are archived there. You can see interviews with many of the candidates running for county council and state senate house seats. And there's a lot of information for you there. And while you're there, maybe you'll make a contribution and help further the independent voice that this program brings. We'll be back with Trinette Furtado in just a minute. There's more to our show in just a moment. This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org. Welcome back. I'm Sam Small on Maui Causes, and with us today is Trinette Furtado, one of my favorite people. What have you learned then, do you think, of changes and to be made in the 2 years that you've been working as an executive assistant? How would you change the structure of how the council works?
Well, first off, and I was discussing this briefly with Councilmember Atai yesterday, no cell phones on the floor. I mean, absolutely. If you're there in a committee meeting, to be giving your full attention, you shouldn't be getting calls from lobbyists or other interested parties feeding you information. If anything, I would hope that the council member and their office would have done the research. Hey, if your EA needs to come in, I do all the time. I come behind Alika, I give him the information he may need, right, because I'm paying attention to the program, what's going on in the meeting itself.
So you make your communications with your council member written. You don't actually text him.
Well, we were texting in the beginning, and it's important, I think, when we talk about, and as we've gotten more accustomed to what we're doing, it's important to talk about, when we talk about transparency, that we have to do it, that we have to be the example of it, and I think that's a very simple thing. There shouldn't be any business that's happening because you're in the middle of something in the middle of a committee meeting. If you're in a committee meeting, you're in a committee meeting.
Right.
Everything else can wait until you're done, unless it's a family issue, emergency. But
it eats up a lot of time.
It does, and sometimes I think that the influx of new information, throws some of the discussion off sometimes, because it's not been incorporated, it's not been looked at, it's just kind of like thrown at you and you go, okay, well, what about this? And sometimes the entire discussion is taken on a tangent when it needed not go that way. If we had a little bit more training with how to hold meetings, and we're able to address that in a more efficient manner. I think that our budget, for instance, a lot of money can be, as you'd mentioned, there's a lot of money that is going out, right? We have a budget that's almost $800 million. we only have a population of maybe 170,000 people. We should not have any problem with children that have no food, with families that have no housing, with people that have no jobs, with those that need services not being able to acquire them. I mean, these things should not be issues.
No, this is a rich county. And,
yes.
and it should be able to well provide for its citizenry. But there is a tremendous amount of dollars that get sucked out of the system. There are these giveaways to developers. We've had one of the past directors of planning characterized Maui County as a culture of leniency.
Well, with the enforcement of certain departments with certain issues, so
or lack of enforcement.
It's lack of
yes. enforcement.
The issue of enforcement. Not just with, and we've seen a lot of these hot button topics, right? Vacation rentals, illegal vacation rentals. The enforcement on that, and thinking about Corporation Council and how involved they've become, not just at the mayor's level, but throughout all of the departments, such that a lot of enforcement that should be pushed through doesn't occur until fines reach a certain amount. And there's nothing in the charter or the code that states it has to reach a certain amount before the county can act on it. And I see that there's some proposed legislation coming up that has to deal with uncollected fines and these kinds of things, and how the county won't be doing that. As I understand it, I've got to do a little bit more research. But I think that absolutely takes away our opportunity to see not only more funding, but to get these people to come into compliance. If I fine you and I never collect from you, where is the lesson for you? You're just going to keep doing it to
Absolutely.
me, right?
And that was, the deferral agreements that were created in 1974 and ran up until 2007. They were never deferral agreements. A deferral is means that at some point in the future
it will be. Yes,
it will be, but they were never ever collected on. So secretly, they were an exemption. Secretly they were a giveaway from the beginning, never to be collected. And that was killed, in 2007 by Joanne Johnson, to great consternation. There was a lot of fighting that went on the council floor. I've read those transcripts. It was not pretty what was going on back then. But they managed to kill those deferral agreements in 2007. Lo and behold, in 2015, the Upcountry Water Bill, which seems to me to be completely manufactured to recreate a new giveaway to developers, because nothing that the council did actually dealt with the water meters and how the water meters would get distributed to the citizenry. Instead, they were talking about, let's do something nice. Let's create a giveaway, in infrastructure improvements for families on the Upcountry water meter wait list. So if somebody gets their second meter now and can do a subdivision, then they shouldn't have to do these roadway improvements. Families on the Upcountry water meter wait list. Not talking about that many families. So it was a nice giveaway to give back to that community that has been waiting all of these years for a water meter.
Right.
But lo and behold, the language that Corporation Council, whose job it is to serve the community, Corporation Council wrote language that got inserted into Title 18, altering infrastructure and roadway improvements. The language never was specific to Upcountry water meter wait list. It never was specific. They simply put in 2-lot subdivisions. And now 2-lot subdivisions, island-wide, regardless of their scope, regardless of whether whether it's a private project or a commercial project, island-wide 2-lot subdivisions are being deferred from their roadway improvements. That's costing the county millions of dollars
Well, what's the timeline on the deferrals? It would be, I mean, you know,
it's an exemption.
This is
an exemption.
If somebody's, you know, if we look at it, and I think, well, I've not had very good dealings with corp counsel myself.
I can understand because
it's frustrating because we should have, you know, Corporation Counsel is one of the largest law firms in Maui County, right? We have very good litigators. We have very good, you know, administrative attorneys. We have good staff. How they're directed and where they're directed is another thing.
Yes.
You know,
because the director answers to the mayor.
Yes.
And corporate and council and the county council really doesn't have an independent legal voice.
Well, you know, according to the charter vote that, you know, people overwhelmingly voted, it should have started and been in place legislative analysts, you know, to offer a second opinion on legal issues for council members that is separate from Corporation Counsel.
But that didn't happen.
Internally, it has yet to truly and fully be implemented and rolled out, which is a huge disappointment and a huge disservice to all council members.
And I don't understand why in the charter revision process that didn't come up. Our charter revision, you know, that we voted for as citizens in 2016 never got actualized. It wasn't written sufficiently, you know, to do the job. And so if it's not working, why wasn't it on the list to fix?
Well, this, you know, the charter amendment that, so the charter amendment that, you know, deals with legislative analysts who may have picked this thing up, you know, and been able to bring this two-lot subdivision thing to, you know, the attention of current council members then, you know, which of course would have been a different, you know, a different composition than the ones who had.
Yes, it's an older council that voted for the 2015.
If we had had those legislative analysts, you know, and not just by name, not just by job title, but actually being able to do that and look at it and render legal opinions instead of defer to the Corporation Council, we might see a little bit more robust discussion, I think. I mean,
absolutely.
I think if we let them do their jobs as we asked them, we hired them to do their jobs, I think we could have, you know, we would see more quicker. I mean, does that make sense? We'd see a little bit more action, a little bit more hana on stuff, a little bit sooner, I think.
You'd see a tremendous amount of more action because when there's only one legal opinion and it's coming through the authority of the mayor, and that legal opinion is running the administrative aspects of the county, but it's also directing the flow and process of the council. Nothing happens, nothing changes. You know, it just protects the status quo. Yes. And that's what we've been living with for decades now. Corporation Counsel, and you know, past Corporation Counsel. If you look, you know, people have left Maui County's Corporation Counsel director's position and open up their own private law firms that are the most exploitative of every possible loophole. Because now they're on the outside, they know how the system works, and they are, for their clients, absolutely working every aspect to manipulate and at sometimes hide fraud that is perpetrated because they know where no one is looking.
And you know, though, in that same, you know, on that same coin, so to speak, you know, there are and have been really great directors that that have been forward thinking, that have, you know, maybe they might not have gone beyond and above, you know, I mean, where we would like them to, you know, try stuff, try to, you know, instigate things, move a new bill. They've done a lot more than those that just sit there and collect a paycheck. Right. And, you know, one of them is former director of housing, and he was a council member for a while, Vince Bagoyo. I had a really great discussion with him about the time that he was director of housing, and in the span of time that he was part of that, 5,000 units were built on Maui.
Oh yeah,
5,000. you know, why are we not doing that? You know, I mean, is it, and I've heard excuses, oh, the county isn't a developer, oh, we're not in the housing business. And well, we're in the people business.
Yeah.
And people need houses.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if we can at
And the county is very much in the housing business.
We're just housing different people and different things.
Every aspect of the financial mechanism related to real estate is predicated on the building permit. That is the building permit, a stamped and approved building permit is the birth certificate of real estate, of a structure. It's the same financial everything depends on your birth certificate. It's how you get credit. You know, it's how your life is measured across your lifespan. The building permit is the same exact thing. So to be able to even conceive the idea that Maui County is not in the development business is absolutely untrue. We are, Maui County is the core. The building department is the core of the development business.
So let's redirect that.
And it can absolutely be managed and worked so that it supports citizens being able to have affordable housing. But in our current climate, with the business stacking the deck, every opportunity is taken to draw money out of the system and not put money into the system. Most municipalities work with a fee in lieu. When you want to, you know, if the timing is not right to do a project, to do infrastructure, you don't defer it the way that they created in 1974. That was a recipe for abuse, and it was abused. You don't give it away, you do a fee in lieu. And money is put aside, whether it's bonded, you do a prorated system, it's applied to your taxes and spread out over years so that you don't really feel the pinch of it. You know, these things there are appropriate ways to handle these issues that the rest of the world, whether it's, you know, maybe it's New Zealand, you know, that is also an island and has unique aspects of island physicality. You know, they have an open frame municipal process where it's handled professionally. The upcountry water meter wait list is the same kind of thing. It was a temporary measure. You know, it was a way. Well, we don't know
they
how
meant good.
They meant well. You know,
but
but no mechanism in the modern day has really been explored how to appropriately administer the issuance of these water meters
that are on the list. And even those, you know, and then an option given to those people that aren't on the list. Hey, look, we are looking at needing to do this infrastructure, right? We would like to put in this pipe. If you are, you know, amenable, if you plan on, you know, I mean, putting in anything extra or what have you, this is the cost if we share the cost amongst all of us here.
Right.
You know, and have the county say, okay, well, you guys, if you're going to be doing this, you know, here's what we'll do for you about your meters, you know, this is what it will look like. You know, I mean, if we can attack the water meter list looking at not just only zones of service that we currently have, right? But like you said, at places where we have new wells, where we have new storage facilities, anything south of that, you know, and gravity feeds some of those, so that infrastructure won't be as expensive.
Right.
And if there are a lot of people in that area on the list, regardless of what number they are, if they're in that particular line, hey, guess what? We've just opened up here. You have the opportunity, and this is what it's going to look like, you know, and then depending on, you know, give it a certain amount of time for people to respond, right? And then the caveat being, if you do not respond, but you intend on adding a new toilet, you know, or adding a shower, adding an addition that requires more fixtures, you will then pay. You know, and it will be spread out. So, you know, I mean,
there are a number of different ways to do it, and there are best practices, you know, around these things. There are companies that's what they do. They go in and they lay out and create an assessment district. and a plan is developed to bring, based on the available water supply, a plan is devised to enhance the entire area and bring what is substandard up to standards, and everybody participates in it to a prorated. There are ways to determine that. The county can underwrite it at the beginning so that the work can actually get performed. People pay their prorated share back with interest over time. So again, it's not a big nut to crack, in the moment.
Right, and it's also, it doesn't discount the fact that new owners will have to pay, and you pay a little bit extra because you're coming onto a line that's already built or already in the process of being built.
Right.
And you don't get to have that benefit that everybody else,
you have to buy it. It's like a private-public partnership in some ways, and you're buying into the water company.
Yes. And what a great idea when you're looking at, so somebody wants to buy property here, right? And I'm thinking about this. I'm going to have to do more research on it.
Yeah.
But I think, as I'm just kind of running through it in my mind, if there were things like, if there was something like an assessment district,
right,
and, realtors would be like, okay, well, in Haiku, this is what the situation looks like. This is your zone of service. You're willing to, wait an extra 45 minutes for fire, police, blah, blah, blah. This is what it's going to look like. If you would like to build out to this point, you can get X amount of people, build it out yourself, wait X amount of, but have options that even though you may not be in a direct zone of service, right, that the opportunity still exists, and you have these several options and ways so that you aren't taking the brunt of the cost. Right. No one is taking the brunt of the cost.
Right.
Because, in the end, everybody benefits, right, if they're tapping into the county line.
Well, and everybody's land value goes up.
Yes.
And so therefore the tax base goes up. And so there's a benefit to the county for participating in the entire process. Not only do you have happy citizens who can actualize their property value and develop appropriately into the system, affordably without it being ridiculously expensive, and everybody's property value goes up, so the tax base goes up. So there are ways to do this stuff, but it takes a vision that just has not been here in Maui County. They just haven't
political will.
Yeah, political will. That's same thing.
Like seriously, there are people that have vision. It's their will as to how to arrive at that vision that is messing us up. Right. For all intents and purposes, it's messing us up. I see our budget next year being over 800 million. I don't think we'll have gained that much population, to show any kind of discernible need that it should be that big, and that's a concern, because I've heard nonprofits in chambers bargaining with each other. I'll cut this if you cut that, just so that we can get money. Making deals so that their cuts aren't going to be as shattering as it would be.
Right.
And I've told them, in the last 2 budget sessions, I've told several nonprofits, ask for what you need. Don't discount yourself. Don't say, oh, we can do without this. If you can't give it, ask for what you need. Because everyone else that is coming before the council is doing exactly that.
Right.
And so if you don't put yourselves out there and say, look, this is what we provide. This is our service. This is our program. These are the people we touch. We have to have this money because the economy is not getting any better where they can do more with less.
Right.
So, we have to look at that. And there's no reason why we have to cut any of those programs. No cuts in services, things that departments needed funded, personnel, vital equipment, all of these things can be funded. It's just the vision and the will to look at the areas where these funds may be stuck and free them up. I don't see why we can't have an actual central base yard where departments that require large equipment that are similar can't just buy in and rent it. Let's get 3 or 4, large dozers or what have you, things that are specific equipment that, say, Public Works and, you know, our transportation uses. And instead of getting one for each department, we get one.
And they can share it.
And they can share it, you know. I mean, the maintenance costs and things are all halved or thirded depending on how many.
There's an economy of means based on the use.
Yes, you know, that we're a little bit more
Coordinated.
Thoughtful about our spending. You know, and I think that also, you know, what comes along with that is letting our departments know that holding on to funds, that siloing, you know, money is unnecessary, because if we show them that we absolutely can fund personnel positions, that we can fund benefits, that we can fund equipment, all of these things without them having to hold on to the money, I'm certain that most of those departments would, you know, easily, hey, you deal with the money, we don't want to deal with where it's going. You know, as long as you're taking care of us. And that's the thing, right? People need to be taken care of. They want to know that for all of the work they do, that they put in, that it's valuable. You know, that somebody really cares about it and is looking to make their job easier so that, you know, they can do more of it, that they're happy doing what they're doing.
Another, you know, resource that seems actually to be being wasted, there's a lot of vacant commercial real estate.
Oh yes, there's quite a few. I mean, people say, oh, there's not that many, you know, units that are vacant, but
they keep building more. But there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that's vacant now.
There's a lot of stuff that's vacant, and it's expensive. And some of these places don't. You know, they get exemptions on their taxes and such, and I think that, you know, when we look at housing, when we
everybody
look at
gets exemptions.
I don't get exemptions.
You know, obviously you're not part of the big business, you know, coercive network. You know, but if you are playing the game, you know, the game is all about getting exemptions.
So, you know, for these vacant spaces, maybe it's not an exemption, but we allow them the opportunity, you know, we give them the choice of revitalizing that space. So whether you use it as a mixed use area, say, you know, some of those places could be used for dormitory areas. They could be used for social services. You know, they could be used to, even on a temporary basis, have an intermediary space so that you're going from houseless to a place where you can kind of gather yourself to maybe into attainable housing, because I don't like that word affordable. It's not very affordable nowadays.
Right.
You know, but using those spaces when they're not being used for commercial uses by, you know, either incentivizing the owners, you know, incentivizing the property company, by giving, not exemptions, but perhaps exceptions. If X amount of this space, or if you use this corner for, you know, and you give it up to, say, Kahaleakeola for them to do intake or what have you, you know, you do get a break on your tax in this form.
Right.
But, you know, within that same vein, if you choose not to do anything with it, perhaps a vacancy tax, you know, is necessary. You know, pay a tax for the fact that
would lower the price of some of this.
If you're not using it, you know, why are we having a building that's not being used except for business, and no business is being in there? You know, but yet,
well, it's warehoused. You know, because they keep a high price on it, because a commercial lease tends to be a longer lease. They don't want to write a longer lease at a low price. They're willing to hold out and for that higher price on the off chance that they're actually going to get it. I think it's a business risk. I think it doesn't serve anybody. It's certainly a drain on the community to have all this empty space.
Well, and especially if you've had empty for years. Now, some people will say, well, that's not fair. You can't direct business. You can't tell business they have to have, you know, these things going on in their building. And it's like, well, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if it's been vacant for much longer than would be a normal span of time, you obviously aren't marketing it well enough, you're asking too much money for it, or you mean for it to sit there and collect its exemptions of sorts. And I think that we need to look at those spots. I mean, there are a lot of spots on the continent where they have done, you know, a mall on the bottom and apartments on the top. And super simple, you know, I mean, the property management company, no reason why they couldn't do the, you know, management of the residentials and the commercial, you know, allowing mixed use in that. And I want to think that there are commercial property owners that would entertain that thought, you know, being able to use the space and get some kind of money. You're still getting retail money and you're getting residential money. And neither of those two groups are paying a huge price, but you're still getting at least the larger, you know, the larger price that you'd wanted in the first place. It's just broken down in a different way.
A lot of that authority seems in Maui County to go to the Planning Commission. Which was even more empowered. I think the council lost even more authority over the Planning Commission in 2017 because of Mike White. He gave up even more control to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission is appointed by the mayor. So it is a politicized body. How our land gets developed doesn't seem to be a community process.
No, and sadly, when things, you know, go through Planning Commission, by the time they come to the council and people realize what a huge issue this particular thing is, you know, I see why those who have taken it through the process, you know, suddenly feign, oh my goodness, you know, we didn't realize there would be this backlash because when we went through the Planning Commission, nobody came. Well, not a whole lot of people know about those meetings, you know, unless you're actively following a particular project or you're following the meetings. And they're held at times that people can't come, you know, and share the information that they have. And so I think, you know, it's sad for the Planning Commission as well. You know, I mean, these people who apply for these things earnestly, a lot of them, you know, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them earnestly and honestly want to serve their community and they want to do the right thing. And they get on these boards and commissions, and for them even, training is not what, you know, it's not as robust as it should be. You know, I mean, they get maybe 15 minutes at their very first meeting about sunshine law. You know what I mean? From Corporation Council. So, you know, I mean, I think that they're being done a disservice, you know, in not having enough background information and not getting enough training and not having enough support. And, you know, I think for boards and commissions, I don't believe it should be the mayor that gets all of the nominations. You know, I do believe, and people will say, yes, the council gets an opportunity to do so, but only after the mayor has filled the spots and people have been voted in or not voted in, you know, or she can't figure out a nominee. I think that, you know, it should be halved maybe.
The council's not given an opportunity to see all of the candidates.
Not until it comes, you know, through the committee. Okay, we're going to, approve or disprove.
They only see who is being.
Just the name's been forwarded.
That's right. They don't see who the other potential candidates were.
Correct. So. And we don't see if these are candidates that were even applying. Some of these people they were terming out of one board or commission and got thrown into another one, you know, and whether or not these people even wanted to be there, we don't know. You know, I mean, could we have put someone else in that position that asked to be on that board specifically? That, you know, I'm not saying may have more passion for it than the other person, but I mean, if we're gonna, you know, just play the 3 shell game with, you know, certain members, we're not giving our community a full opportunity for somebody that maybe right now doesn't think he or she should stand up. But later may find that they absolutely have to. Kind of like how I came to it.
Yes, yeah, you know, which is what I so appreciate, you know, because you have a depth of understanding, and with that understanding comes a responsibility, and you're stepping up to the plate. You know, you have taken it upon yourself. It's just who you are. You know, and you probably don't know how unique you are, but it's just who you are. I see it. you have an understanding, and by virtue of that understanding, you accept the responsibility to make things right.
I hope to.
And I hope you get the chance.
I do too. I have a lot of very close friends that are Hawaiian patriots, that are Hawaiian nationals. We discuss this often, not only running under duress, but voting under duress. If we don't get involved in this particular aspect of this occupying government, we will always, until we take it over,
right,
we will always be left with whatever the dominating force within that government is moving,
yep,
and giving, or
yep,
not giving.
Yep. If you're not at the table,
you're
are
on the menu. And it's our table.
Yes. So with that, we encourage you to participate, register and vote. We have an opportunity like never before, actually, because same-day voting is now a thing. You do not have to be registered before you go to the polls. On that day, if you are not yet registered, you can show up at the polls with your identification, and you can register right there at the polls, and you can vote. And it makes a big difference. No more so ever before than in this election. Trinette, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for all the work that you've been doing, and for everything that we hope you can do in the County Council. And
well, if I get voted into the Makawao-Ha iku-Pā seat, I will, my whole goal is to continue working for my community.
Yep. And the path I see for you is one day you will be governor of the state of Hawaii.
Let me run for this one first.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you all. Join us again on Maui Causes. This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org.